We remember Myra Kalman's painting of Henri Cartier-Bresson's photograph. Yes, that I shared with you in one of my last videos. And I wanted to share a few further thoughts about, in relation to, not about, but in relation to, concerning, great difference, light years of difference between speaking or about and relating. Speaking about a phenomenon, speaking about some matter that might really matter. Big difference about speaking about it and entering into some relation with it, or addressing it, approaching it, engaging it, considering it, concerning. So in relation to Myra Kalman's, the principles of uncertainty, I want to share a few further thoughts. But in this video, I actually want to share, to try to share, it's all a human being can really do, the Polish Jewish educator Janusz Korczak. The Polish Jewish educator Janusz Korczak emphasized that we can only try the court of peers of the same age group, yes, in his orphanage. He said, we don't call it the court of justice. We call it the court that tries for justice, that's trying to achieve justice. Janusz Korczak. Yes. I think I already shared with you, perhaps, this drawing based on, of course, a black and white photo of Dr. Korczak. He was a pediatrician, yes? You can see some writing here, because this is a drawing that I made on one of my students' papers. Janusz Korczak. And here on my desk, please excuse me, I probably showed you this. I think recently I showed you this in one of my videos. On my desk is a photo of Korczak. I remember now, yes. When I was sharing with you my little book that I made for the Bar Mitzvah twins, Nadav and Yaniv and Nimrod. And so I mentioned, I hope you've heard about Janusz Korczak in the Warsaw Ghetto. Of course, before there was a Warsaw Ghetto, and he was living in Warsaw with in the orphanage that he built for his 200 orphans. And what else about Janusz Korczak? I have an essay about him that I published, and kind of a book review in his own the style of his writing. But you can we can find a book. There's a big difference also between you and we. It's sad to say you can find. I think almost in education we can say we. We should say you when we really mean to ask, to invite. What do you think? You as different than moi. But I think almost always we can usually say we, for a lot of reasons. And of course, when our students are working in small groups on some project, be it a drawing of the three parts of divide, if we are asking them to divide chapter 1 of Joshua into three parts, how would you divide it? And remember, I shared with you, yes, Charlie's, when he was in the 6th grade, here's the verses up above, and then make a triptychon, a three-part drawing, presumably Joshua, the people, really feeling the death, the loss of Moshe. I think that's authentic. Students learn how to give back to teachers what they're looking for. But I think sometimes there's some kind of an authenticity that comes through. We can tell that the student just isn't giving back what they figured out the teacher wants. And so I want to share with you. Actually, Janusz Korczak wrote a little book called Moses as a Child. And maybe in some other opportunity we'll be able to explore that together. So as I say, I was beginning to say that we can find in English a book by Betty Jean Lifton that came out some, 25 years ago. But it's really the only study we have in English that's readily available. I don't know if it's still in print. It's called King of Children. So you might want to look for that. There, I could say I could say you might want to look for that. But it is available to us. All of us can, get a hold of it. Betty Jean Lifton, The King of Children. The whole book used to be online, and I haven't rechecked it lately. So you might want to check in a search engine, Betty Jean Lifton, King of Children, see if it's still online. Janusz Korczak. I have a number of thoughts that I feel I know myself. See, there's a difference between feeling and knowing also. That I know myself to be compelled to be called over the past days to share with you in response to some of the ideas that you've been sharing in the discussion forum. And Susan, what a wonderful meditation, thoughts that you shared with us recently about the Henri Cartier-Bresson's photograph via Myra Coleman's painting of it. And you're seeing the chair, which resonated something for me, but I didn't really articulate it explicitly. Here it is. I remember I took you upstairs to show you how I painted this type of chair, precisely this type of chair that I have upstairs, how I painted it this color, and inspired by Myra Coleman's painting. Of course, she includes it. I mean, it's in the photograph, yes, by Henri Cartier-Bresson. It's in his photograph. But she seems to enjoy that chair and the color that she gives to it. Well, again, I want to go back to share a few further thoughts about, concerning, in relation to Myra Coleman's book, The Principles of Uncertainty. But as I say, I really, there's a number of ideas that I want to share, a kind of a mix, a potpourri of ideas. And one of them is that I came across an interview, a piece of an interview, that particularly spoke to me, of Henri Cartier-Bresson. Now, he's considered, by people who know about photography and the visual arts, he's considered one of the leading, probably, the leading half dozen photographers of the 20th century. So I think it's just wondrous the way in this interview, the interviewer asks him the following question. I wrote it down, copied it when I came across this. Yeah, we can see how can you read my handwriting? Isn't that wonderful? Is that wonderful or what? Huh? Isn't it? Yes? I think it's just fantastic. Do you like actors? The guy or the gal interviewing him says, do you like actors? As a photographer, I mean. And here, one of the greatest photographers considered of the 20th century says, I'm not a photographer. I'm not a photographer. I have a camera, and sometimes I use it. What? Isn't this fantastic? I love that. Now, I'm very well aware. I mean, there'd be no way that I wouldn't know this. Yes. That there are many people, I don't know, hundreds of people, maybe probably actually, probably actually several thousand, who consider me somehow a little more one of their most influential, indeed, for many of them, their most influential teacher. Well, this is wonderful. I mean, Ani Mukaf Malachim. I'm surrounded by angels. I mean, really. But, this generosity is, very lovely. But what I'm trying to say is that I have never seen myself really as a teacher. Never really seen myself as a teacher. And also to say I don't really. But Steve, Steve, how do you see yourself then? I mean, well, I see myself in this regard, in this concern, in relation to this phenomenon or this fact that many, a lot of people feel this way, or know this in relation to their relation. The way I see it is that I am aware that I very much want, or again, know myself to be compelled, to be called, to be compelled, to be drawn to share something of my humanity with many others with whom I might come into encounter, with whom I might find myself in the same room, or in the same summer camp, or in the same street, or in the same bus, whatever the setting is, in the same supermarket. Somehow I'm compelled to share something of my Jewish, human, American, European, Asian, humanity. So, I see I have a phone call, but I'm going to answer that later. And I'm going to put it in this drawer and somehow, muffle it up there. We can still hear it a little bit. So this is very important to me. This notion that, how does Martin Buber put it, Mordechai Martin Buber, in his book, I and You? He says, we can't achieve the I-You relationship, form of relationship, character, quality of relationship, by pursuing it, by seeking it. You know, Van Gogh, he never sold one of his paintings in his lifetime. Not one of his paintings in his lifetime. Yes. I showed you a picture of him. Yes, I showed you a picture of him. I shared with you one of his many self-portraits. Yes. Also from that book, the little book that I made for the Bar Mitzvah twins, Yaniv Nimrod. See, here he is. Here he is wearing glasses. You see. So, Van Gogh, he never sold a painting in his lifetime. Now they're selling it for, $20 million or something. How does he support himself? From his brother, Theo. They exchange letters, as you may know. Some of those are wonderful letters. Some of them he talks about his colors and shapes. In one of them he says, some people have pointed out to me who've seen my painting of such and such a cafe, in France. And they say, but the walls, you have them there. I mean, I guess he liked turquoise. He was drawn, not like. There's a big difference also between the word like. I like something. I mean, I don't want to waste my time on liking something. That which seizes me, I want to involve myself with. Not that which is interesting or I like it. Excuse me for all the Facebook lovers. I don't have time for that. I'm looking for what? The grace, for greatness. Greatness. And for the in-depth. What is in-depth? What is commanding? What arouses a sense of, that stops us in our tracks. Sometimes often I have music going. Shostakovich or Bach or whoever. Verdi's Requiem. And, I'm in the kitchen preparing something to eat, or I'm working on an art project, or studying something. And then suddenly I'm drawn. I'm in the kitchen, and I walk over suddenly into the salon, closer to the stereo speakers. Because how can I do anything else? This passage in the music is drawing me toward it, is seizing me. I'm in unbelievable wonder that how could there be such beauty or such pathos or such compassion for the human situation in this language that we call music. This is what we're looking for in Jewish education, also in our Jewish classrooms, and other contexts of Jewish learning. We're not just looking for someone with a few good ideas. To share something of our Jewish humanity, the deepest that is in us. That's what Judaism needs. Eid Lasot Hashem. This is a time for acting on behalf of the divine, the universe, the world, needs us, needs something really commanding, something that really can matter, make a difference. And some people say, oh, but you're a professional, Steve. Don't involve yourself too much. You're a professional. First of all, that would be brainwashing, you know. Well, first of all, the root of the word professional is to profess. The root is to profess. What do I profess? What do we profess? What do you profess? Wasn't there a poem by Allen Ginsberg among our 18? Yes, maybe it was the last one. Oh yes, here it is. Allen Ginsberg is about. Oh, there's that word about. What is it really all about? I mean, I think the word about is a bit strong, is a lot stronger. Is really a strong word. Let me say, what is it really all about? And the first line, Dylan is about the individual. Did you get a chance to consider that? It's among the 18 in the 18th packet. Dylan is about the individual against the whole creation. Beethoven is about one man's fist in the lightning clouds. One man's fist in the lightning clouds. That's wonderful. That's strong. I mean, Beethoven isn't fooling around. Beethoven isn't fooling around. Oh, he was a wild man. Beethoven. I mean, Van Gogh didn't paint. What I'm trying to say, Van Gogh didn't work in order to sell paintings. He didn't work in order to please anybody. Worked because he'd die if he didn't paint those crows. Or Monet, those wheat stacks. Or back to Van Gogh, those workman's shoes. Or as he wrote to, his brother Theo. People say that cafe in Paris, the walls aren't that color, kind of turquoise, bright, green, blue that you made them. I looked into it when first said to him, it was never that color. Van Gogh, Vincent writes to his brother Theo, he says, I know that. I wasn't painting the way the walls looked, the color of what the walls looked, how they looked. I was painting how it felt, how it feels to me. The other word feel is a deep feel. What was compelling to me about how I experienced being in that room, in that cafe. That's what I was painting. It's metaphor. Sometimes metaphor coincides with the literal meaning as well. But sometimes it doesn't. Metaphor, meta, beyond, fear in Greek, takes us beyond the saying to someplace else, to another meaning. Beethoven, well, half. Oh, Beethoven is blank on the other side. There's metaphor. There's an anecdote about Pablo Picasso that somebody said when he found him, bumped into him and realized it was Picasso, the famous Picasso. And he said, I'm so honored to meet you, but I have to tell you, I really don't, it's not my, what draws me on is not your kind of artwork. What kind of artwork draws you on, engages you? Picasso asked him. Realistic art. the man said. Oh, for instance, what do you mean by realistic art? And the man took out his wallet, and he took out a little photograph, and he handed it to Picasso, and he said, here, here's an example of realistic. This is a photo of my girlfriend. And Picasso now had it, yes, in hand. And he turned it, around this way and that way, and turned it, on its back. And he said, your girlfriend is very small, and she's blank on the on the back. So, back to Allen Ginsberg's, see, I'm all over the place now. And so here, Eliezer is the madness of Plato, as you refer to, the madness of books. Have you come across Martha Nussbaum's? Yes? Have you come across Martha Nussbaum's a wonderful book? I found it wonderful anyway. The Fragility of Goodness. Luck and Ethics in Greek Tragedy and Philosophy. Martha Nussbaum. She used to be at Brown University. That's what it says under her. But she's been at Chicago University for many years now. And she has a chapter there where she talks about actually the early and the later in their life, also Aristotle, also Picasso, Plato. And early in his life, actually, Plato was very suspect of the emotions, as I assume you well know. There's a wonderful little book by, what's her name? Called The Fire and the Sun, about Plato's, in his early part of his life. Iris Murdoch's book, The Fire and the Sun, a little slim book. Maybe it's based on a lecture of hers, I don't remember. But it reads that way. And there Plato, she speaks about Plato is concerned in relation to poets and artists. He's very suspicious. He's very uncomfortable with them because the emotions and intuition is very central to their experience. And the early Plato felt that, held, professed, he understood things such that he saw the emotions and intuition as a very poor, unreliable basis for understanding. But later in his life, he came to understand things differently. And what he knew then was that the emotions and the intuition can serve us very well, but not by themselves. In this, he was really a Talmudist. Yes. Well, Saul Lieberman and others have argued that, and I think Daniel Boyarin recently, I think is one of his latest books, I think is about this too, I noticed. This being that the development of the Talmud is very much influenced, is very much drawing from certain Greek approaches to intellectual discourse and intellectual investigation, engaging of the intellect in conversation with others, between teachers, between teachers and students, between students and students. Of course, the wonderful phrase Talmidei Chachamim for a sage in Rabbinic Judaism, no matter how veteran, no matter how accomplished, everyone's a Talmid Chacham, a student of the wise, of wisdom. It's very similar to the word philosopher, lover of wisdom. It goes back to, well, I'm not a photographer. Do you like actors? I mean, as a photographer? I'm not a photographer. I have a camera, and sometimes I use it. how do we define ourselves? Especially when it comes to such profound professions, such profound tasks as collaborating in the spiritual development and the expansion of the spirit of others. I mean, so I think that our work is to those of us who do find ourselves as teachers in teaching contexts. And on our IRS statements, you have to write something, so you can't write as your profession, I'm sharing something of my humanity with others. Although if you look in the about, there's the word about, in our course site, I think you'll find there someplace that interview in Hebrew here in Jerusalem that I was interviewed, and I translated it into English. And you'll see that they're asking profession, and it's clear that they just want one word, lawyer or teacher or professor or something. All the questions they want is pretty much one word or two words, but of course I have fun with them, with that, and I'm kind of a trickster. You're already familiar with that. My concealing myself and then Hine revealing myself at certain junctures by some certain insane logic, reasoning of my own, of when and how and with whom and should I be holding back or engaging, revealing, concealing, when, how much, and how, and so there's some, I think, teachers and artists, poets, musicians. There is something rather, some insanity, something that has to do with inspiration, and it just can't be all put neatly into a syllabus. We're interacting with those with whom we find ourselves sharing, coming into contact. And yes, so Allen Ginsberg, what is it about? What do you want to be about? After his list of all kinds of phenomena in the world, Holocaust, mass injury and murder, high technology. I'm reading again now from his poem, Is About. Communication is about monopoly, television, radio, movie, newspaper, spin on Earth, i.e. planetary censorship. Universe is about universe. Allen Ginsberg is about confused mind, writing down newspaper headlines from Mars. The audience is about salvation. The listeners are about sex, spiritual gymnastics, nostalgia for the steam engine and Pony Express. Hitler, Stalin, Roosevelt, and Churchill are about arithmetic and quadrilateral equations, above all chemistry, physics, and chaos theory. Who cares what it's all about, he says, he writes, the poet here, Allen Ginsberg, and the fourth line from the end of this poem. Who cares what it's all about? I do. Edgar Allan Poe cares. Shelley cares. Beethoven and Dylan care. What Jewish greats would you put in there? Who are the Jewish greats for you? As I have asked you, if you were making a bar mitzvah book, who would be your? Because you can't take mine. It won't work for you. Some of you can adapt some of what I'm sharing with you, but you can't adopt it. It won't work for you. It works for me because I love that particular writer or cartoon or painting or music and I sweated to find it and to place it in this or that way. So you can copy something of my madness, you can follow something of my method and my guiding assumptions. But you can't just copy, the curriculum that I've come up with to share with others. What we have to do is look for our own humanity. That's what we have to do much more than anything else. Much more than thinking about who is the student. As I say, Van Gogh didn't think about who's the people out there who might buy his paintings. He didn't bother about that. Oh, I know that's heresy with the commonplaces and Schwab and Tyler and who are the students, who is society, and we just forget who we are. It's like the Hasidic story, of the man who wakes up in the morning and can't find his clothes, And so one day he says, well, I have a good idea. I'll write it down on a piece of paper, and I'll put it, by my pillow, right there. When I take off my jacket, my shoes, my shirt, my trousers, and I'll have it all listed. And he gets up, he does that. He gets up the next morning, and there it is, the piece of paper, and the list, and he follows it, and it's wonderful. And he's dressed, he's all set to go. And as he's looking at the list, and I like the Picasso story, he turns it over in this way and that way, and he says, this is excellent, but where in the world am I? So we know everything about the psychology of a sixth grader, maybe. But what we know we know about the truths of the sixth grader, the world of the sixth grader. But what are my truths? When I was to develop that think sheet, to develop that flamingo on Joshua 1 for my sixth graders at Solomon Schechter in Boston, my first step, the first stage of my curriculum development was forget about who the students are. Forget about that you're teaching in Solomon Schechter. The first thing, Steve, is for you to restudy, take a look again, you, Steve, as an adult, as however old you are, try to approach, encounter, enter into a significant relationship with chapter 1 of Joshua. Yes. Are there elements in your experience, Steve, which might be similar to what's going on here in this chapter? Look at what which words repeat, etc. What's going on? Now, you see, many of you saw in the discussion forum you shared, you saw in the think sheet on chapter 1 of Joshua that I shared with you, the issue of leadership, or the issue of the borders of the land of Israel. But, and this is excellent, as I've said, a fair part of reading or looking at a painting or listening to music, looking at a tree, taking a course in university, participating in a course. There's a big difference between taking a course and participating in a course. A fair part of that is my response, reader response, beholder response. What it says to me, what associations, what it reminds me of, what it says to me. But that's not all it is, because it also has its own unique structure. And that is going to be somewhat different than what I know or expect. Meaning I now as the beholder or the student or whatever, the reader. So I mean, if one really looks at the think sheet that I shared with you in chapter 1 of Joshua, first of all, one notices that there's a selection made from chapter 1 of Joshua. I've actually cut out the verses, there's the beginning of them, but there's verses that are more specific about the borders, what is included in the land of Israel, in the area that Joshua is to conquer. I left that out. I didn't leave it out because I know that we should not be addressing that with our students, even our sixth graders. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that would make could make potentially an equally excellent, valuable study. But that's going down a certain path. That's one direction, one dimension of this chapter. I want to go someplace else. And I would say that, and I'll contradict myself, I'll say that I don't think that issue is all that deeply speaking to the experience of a sixth grader, at least in America, outside of Israel, the state of Israel. And even in the state of Israel, it may be true that it's more, or truer that more when I get into high school, when a young person goes into high school, that these issues are more real. But when you're in the sixth grade, the issue of, as I've suggested, that Erik Erikson identifies, of competence versus inferiority, is more paramount in my experience in my life. But again, I want to make clear, my first stage of curriculum development, of developing this think sheet, I don't think about Erik Erikson, what he says about sixth graders. I think about me in relation to this chapter. Is there anything that could really speak to me in this chapter? But again, when I say speak to me, not just me without the chapter, but me opening myself to what is burning from the black fire on white fire of that chapter. And I mean, there it is, the repeating. Be strong and of courage. As I was with Moshe, I will be with you. And the repeating of the death of Moshe, who succeeded to be Eved Hashem. So, yes, I mean, I think it's central there. But also, it's me. It is me also. I have felt profoundly moved in my life by people, teachers, who I looked up to, who have encouraged me, who have been encouraging, who have believed in me, as we say. It's another kind of sense of believe in that I think resonates some meaning. I have felt accompanied by many people. And that has been very, very meaningful for me, very moving for me. Chasdam gavar alai. Their chesed has been overwhelming to me. So this is also one of the reasons I found this for me in studying chapter 1 of Joshua. Joshua is, as one of my sixth graders put it, Sarah put it, one of my sixth graders, she said, Joshua was afraid he would goof up. She's speaking about herself. We're all afraid that we'll goof up sometimes. In some situations in our life, not just sometimes, or not just a little bit afraid. Anxious. And then the other themes, the questions that I raised in the think sheet. Yes? Such as, what help does God offer Joshua? What kind of help? And what kind of a help doesn't he offer? I mean, he's still going to go have to conquer these cities. All right, Jericho, maybe he gets a little bit of help with something beyond the ordinary, perhaps. Depends how one reads that, of course. It always depends. Yes. It always depends. I've shared this with you already. It all depends on how, according to what way of reading, what way of thinking, what way of experiencing, what way of knowing, and what we know, what we experience through those ways. That's a critical question. What kind of help does the reality we call God, or the divine, offer us, extend? And what kind of help, in a way, does the divine not extend or withhold? Or partially extend? at certain stages maybe, or puts it out there within the fabric of the laws of history and psychology and whatever, so that it's available for us, but we're the ones who still have to recognize it and draw out those potentialities and develop them within ourselves and between ourselves and whatever it is that we're encountering or seeking or trying to approach. Or this wonderful rock, yes, only. We're going to, follow what you say, Joshua. You're the new leader. So that rock can be understood as only we're for sure going to only follow you. Or, as some of the interpreters, means only if you follow the Torah, the teaching of Moshe. Only if we think, and we're just not going to give up thinking entirely. We're not going to throw our minds out the window. We're going to be looking to checking you all the time, or at least at regular stages. We're going to be checking to see if we think that the way you're leading us, where you're leading us to, conforms with our understanding of what the Moses teachings were. God's teachings are, the Torah's teachings. And then here we have 6th graders. I'm bringing Martin Buber to 6th graders. Or you might not bring Martin Buber, you might bring someone else, one of our other great teachers. But that's what I'm asking you. Who would you bring? I don't want you to bring Martin Buber. Yes? And so I bring Buber here, where Buber says the individual must be able to belong to his group with both passionately active and passionately combative love. Sometimes love is agreeing and defending the group, your group. Sometimes it's critiquing the very group you belong to. Loyalty, half of loyalty is to criticize where your group is going. How is that loyalty to your group? Because it's loyalty to the ideals of your group as you understand them. So I know that when we come into school and we're going to teach chapter 1 of Joshua, I know that we're often told by the headmaster or the principal or whatever, do leadership, focus on leadership when you do chapter 1 of Joshua. There's a curriculum idea for you. Oh, thanks a lot. I really would question. I question if leadership is really all that an in-depth experience, not only for 6th grader, but for most of us. Yes, we think about it, the leaders of our societies and everything, but I think there's deeper, more root kind of experiences that is what we live and suffer and strive and love and paint and make music about. I mean, Beethoven made music about Napoleon, the Emperor Symphony, etc. He later changed the name. He later took back the the dedication to Napoleon because he first thought that Napoleon was going to lead us to democratic, liberal nation states. Then he found out his hopes were dashed, his and millions of others. But I mean, even that wasn't really about leadership. It was about notions of justice and inclusion of others. The others who, whoever is left out in this or that society, in this or that way. That's when you have injustice. Someone has been left out, hasn't been included, but excluded. Or there's not one idea about justice, so what's your idea? All right, well here I'm going on and on and on, almost into infinity, almost. So I think I'm going to stop here, but not really just stop, but just to take a break. because it can't stop me. And maybe I'll make another part, second part to this insane, mad rambling all over the unknown and parts of the unknown universe, or at least the known or parts of the unknown in New Jersey. All right. So, again, thank you for being with me. And, we try to continue to see what happens.